Made it. 11 a.m. 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on the dot. On the dot. No, not go live on Twitter. What's up, guys? How's everybody doing? We can start with this one. Oh, intense. You remember this one from last time? Do like a Tony Robbins thing and just start jumping around on the stage. Yeah, let's go. I don't know why. Got to boost the energy up. Okay, enough of that. Enough of that. Fade it out. What's up, Jose? We got Tyler Watkins joining us. I think he's joining us. He's supposed to be joining us. Be right there, hopping out of a work meeting. Lame. Who works anymore? So here's what we're going to talk about on today's show. Confirming the thumbnail right away. So I had this discussion with Tyler Watkins, and we were chatting. Whoa, that song's still playing. What's up, Justin? Instrumentals. Last time I asked if anybody could guess this song. One person did very cleverly in the comments. I don't know if that's... Okay. All right. Enough of that. All right. So what we're going to do, Tyler Watkins and I were having a conversation, and we were discussing about like, hey, can you actually make a profitable CrossFit competition? Here he is, ladies and gentlemen. Tyler Watkins.
What up?
With good internet, but a weird sounding mic. Is your microphone on? Applause.
Is it working?
I think so.
Nothing.
Can you hear the live audience?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
You heard them applauding for you? It's an important part. It's an important part of the feature of my show. Okay. So I was giving the premise, the breakdown of what we're going to be discussing. And I was letting people know that you and I were having this conversation, as we do a lot of different ones around the business of CrossFit and CrossFit competitions in particular. And we got chatting, and we're like, okay, let's go through this, and we're gonna do the weave. You guys are gonna feel the weave here, but we might bring it back around essentially as to like, can the CrossFit Games ever be profitable and survive? And I think we're gonna kick off with a little case study using Crash Crucible. And I think that's going to tie into the larger picture of the conversation kind of interestingly later on. And I got some cool figures and numbers and everything for you guys. But real quickly, I want to play something for you. Tyler, I don't know if you've ever seen this before. Hold on.
I'm stoked.
You may have seen it before. Don't be like crazy excited. Just maybe like kind of excited. So in the last couple podcasts, in the last few months, Greg had mentioned pretty much the only thing he had left to give in the fitness industry or to affiliates was this talk at the 10-year affiliate gathering in Whistler. And this indeed is the talk here, brought to us by Broken Science Initiative YouTube channel. They also have Thomas Siegfried's talk on cancer being a metabolic diseaser. That video is doing really good. So go check that out. You've heard Sevon and I talk about it. That was at the talk that he gave in Boston. Anyhow, back to Whistler, 10-year affiliate summit. I just want to listen to this one part here. And I don't know if any of you guys have heard this before, but I think you might find it interesting.
So how come now and here and today, 10-year affiliates? And what happened was a couple of months ago, we got off social media. Anyone remember that? Yeah. And we gave some reasons. I think they were completely legitimate. I think that company is fundamentally evil. And there was the rationale for it. You can find that on .com. It's each one of those was more than enough reason. I never got Facebook anyway. I never really understood it. But the selling of our information, and I mean, go through the list. That's not why we're here to talk about Facebook.
Is it super choppy for you? I know my internet bar is low.
Yeah, it is.
Can you hear it okay though?
Yeah, I can hear it fine. It's perfect. It's perfect.
Okay. All right, great. No, sell back to Greg for $1. Scott Morgan. Yeah, we hope. Okay, continuing on.
Facebook. But what was amazing was that we got an overwhelmingly positive response from mainstream media, which I never expected would happen. I should have, because I get now that social media and mainstream media are at war with one another and each other's competitors. But from all over the world, and just about every major media outlet held us up as heroes for getting off of fucking Facebook. And I thought, that's really weird, because mainstream media has never liked anything we have ever done. And here we are getting the ultimate praise, and from around the world, and it scared me. It gave me reason to really check our shit. Uh-oh, maybe we fucked up. I don't like that. I'm not comfortable with all of that. And so we said, well, geez, who doesn't like this? And so I talked to the affiliate team. I actually found a few affiliates that were upset at the move. And one in particular that I knew well. I knew these young men from their inception, from the start. They're good trainers. They're good kids. They got a good box. And do we have that line? Do we have that sentence? This, by the way, this is Brian Mulvaney and Russ Green here, looking like deer in the headlights.
So anyways, he goes on to continue the talk there. And I just thought it was interesting. Everybody could go check that out. But Greg later on says like, oh, that might have been a mistake getting off of the social media. And a lot of people were really critical of the abrupt change in the media direction, in the direction of CrossFit.com at that time. Because if you remember, January 1st, 2019 was when we had the big switch from what we normally saw on main site to the old people on the couch and Sevon's mom doing dips in the back of the couch and stuff, right? So he gave that talk and kind of explained why he did that. And I think the reason why that's important for this conversation here is because there had to be some sort of fundamental changes made in order for CrossFit, the company, to like financially survive. So anyways, I hope that didn't derail it too much, but have you ever heard that before? Have you heard that?
What? I think I have. Like most of his stuff, I've seen all of his little bits and stuff there. I remember going through that. I remember the weird old lady and the old dude in the couch stuff that looked like the set of Roseanne. It was so strange.
Yeah.
And then I remember when they shut off media, I was like, does Greg know something? Like I was just totally lost. And it felt like it was like your crazy uncle did something. And it was like, what's happening? I mean, like looking back, I totally understand why he did it. Do I think it was a good move? Probably not. But I do understand like it is a justified move. Doesn't mean it's a good one. It's justified.
Yeah, that's what I said too. I was like, I agreed with the overall theory and premise. I just would have done it a little bit differently. But I guess the abruption came from some frustrations that were experienced internally with like wanting to make that nudge, kind of saying that, not really having any action behind it. And then just saying, okay, fine, then I'll just do it. And we'll just rip, I'll drive over to Fremont, rip the servers out or wherever that is when Elon did that. That's kind of the equivalent of, right?
It looks more and more intelligent what he did, but like you have to be able to replace it somehow. So, okay, you take yourself off social media, you need to like double down on the budget you're spending on YouTube. Essentially, even though YouTube is a social media, it's a totally different thing. Like, yeah, there are people who comment and you can do essentially the same thing in there, but it's just a totally different feel. It's not nearly as viral. And I think like per Greg's mission, it applies a lot better.
Yeah. And like Justin's saying here, they lost their ability to control the narrative. And that's right. And if you pay attention to the start of that, Greg was like, wait a minute, we got a ton of attention by mainstream media that we never got before. That was positive. And he was like, and that raised a red flag for me. And that right there is also, why is that? Is because it's being pushed out to the mainstream narrative from their voice, from their point of view. And he's like, wait, what are they saying? How do we correct it? Because typically they have not been fair or nice when it came to CrossFit at all. Okay, so what do you want to start this thing off at? You want to go back to Crash, like you were saying, and start kind of with like,
did you spell out the idea of essentially what happened? Like what us coming up with this idea?
No, not really. Just basically a conversation. And
so we'll start there and just float. So I mean, essentially we're at Crash and Susan and I are staying up till 2 a.m. and getting up at 6. And like we'll get home when we're getting home like 10 o'clock. Yeah. And we're spitballing both ideas for the group in general, but then also like what's going right with Crash, what's going wrong with Crash. And then a couple days after we got home and sort of debriefed, I text Susan and I was like, we need to analyze this like a business, like we would with anything else, but like really look at it, compare it to the only other thing that exists, which is semifinal/regionals, and just think about it like an overall business model. Like really, like this is something that Susan and I do already, but do it out in front of everybody.
Yeah. And hopefully you guys will dig it because, whatever, we'll try to make the conversation as entertaining as possible, but it's definitely going to be on the economics and like running competitions and if it's feasible to last long-term.
Well, that's the question that it's funny. Like every time I see CTP, For those who don't know, the camera guy for Barbell Shrug, but now TTT. Every time I see him at a competition, whether it's the games or semifinals or whatever, he's always like, is this worth it anymore? Like, what are we doing? You know, and like Souza and I asked that question a lot, like, is this still worth, is the juice worth the squeeze here? And when we left Crash, I was like, the juice is worth the squeeze for this 100%. And so it's like, but I also love playing devil's advocate against myself and being like, or am I just hype on this situation that we created? Like, so that all starts for me with like assessing it as a business. For those who don't know, I'm an accountant in my real life. So it's like, it's sort of secondhand nature to be like, I really like this idea, but is it just something we pay to do, you know, hanging with the boys, or is it something we can really make money off of and make the future of the sport? And that's what the key thing to me is like, we're in a bit of a growth, not really a bit of a growth lull, like a complete growth pause, if not free fall. So it's like, what, you know, if you find something that works, it's like, is this it? Have we landed on something here?
Yeah. And so how do we want to start? You want to start with Crash, or I actually have some interesting numbers from the CrossFit Games that might paint the picture, or the problem rather. What do you want to? Okay. So these are just kind of made up figures that I have that, you know, whatever, we could back some of the math into if we want to. And I'm sure Tyler might question me a little bit on it. But essentially, if we use something around prior to the plug being pulled on the media, right? So 2017 was the last year that we had all that big media. Right around 2018 was when that change came. So,
this is a good idea, because I ran numbers too, but you went at it from a different perspective. So I'm interested to see where you went.
Yeah, because mine all backs into like, how do we, like, the competitions and everything are cool. I think there is a marketing tool for them to the affiliates, but mostly my concern is like, how do we strengthen the affiliates, right? And how do we use this to the affiliate advantage? And if it's not being a great marketing tool, or it's harming the affiliates, we need to look at that and make some corrections. So in let's say 2017, $38 million for top line revenue, which we could predict out with about 10,000 gyms. And we're just using these numbers roundly, so it's easier, but give or take, it might be close to about 10,000 affiliates. But now in 2025 would mean 45 million. Okay. So if we use a 38 million top line for affiliate revenue in 2017, and then let's say we have training revenue that's just exactly equal. So 38 million again. Okay.
And that's like level ones, all
level
the
ones, level twos,
okay.
Like all this is when they had specialty courses. So like, let's just say all that lumped into one. All right.
CrossFit Field Sport. Shout out.
Yeah, CrossFit football. So let's say that from that, the net affiliate money means the net income, right? So just how much it earned outside of paying all the people and everything else that it needed to, was 27.9 million in affiliate money, which would be pretty high, because you figure that mostly those are just like expenses, benefits, employees, payroll, those type of fixed costs potentially that would run the business. By and large, it doesn't take a lot for you to deliver outside of onboarding on the service of affiliate. So the cost of delivery for that would probably be relatively low in the grand scheme of things, relative to your training, because that you need to fly people out, you have to host them at a gym, you have to have a staff there, you got to feed them, you got to pay for their travel. So those expenses are a little bit higher.
Yeah. So what you're saying is your variable expenses are high. Whereas if you create videos, those are evergreen. Those exist forever. People can watch them over and over again. But the seminar staff is a unique instance every single time. It's a hamburger. You have to put lettuce on the hamburger every single time.
That's right. Yep. As opposed to like you said, the affiliate fee is like a video. You could just continue to watch it and it goes, right? Okay. So then now let's put in some of the losses here. So let's assume there's 4.6 million in losses for training. So that's how much it cost essentially out of that top line revenue of the 27 million. It costs to run the training department. Now let's assume that there's a CrossFit Games attached to that. It would be $14.3 million in losses. So if you look at the games,
you're saying losses in costs. Okay.
In costs, but
I'm an accountant, bro. Don't be screwing with my wordage.
But where does that money come from? It comes from that net income that we have from affiliate fees, right? And so essentially making it pre-tax net profit for CrossFit is around 15.2 million. Okay. So if you have a company that size and that's your pre-tax profit right there, that's pretty negligible for a company that size. Now, where is the problem? Okay. So the problem becomes, if the game's costs grow faster than affiliateship grows, we have a big problem. Is everybody following?
But it shouldn't.
What do you mean it shouldn't? Like the game shouldn't outpace the growth of the affiliates?
The games probably did. But what I'm saying is at the current model, like if you just continue to grow the pie, it shouldn't. Yeah, your variable costs will rise with the thing, but it should be the same percentage. The pie grows, but the thing stays the same, right?
Right. So the
slice stays
the problem is what happens is when the pie doesn't grow, but the slice starts to.
Right.
So here's what I just kind of put just as some cliff notes of this. And this kind of paints the problem of the unique situation that CrossFit HQ is in, as well as us just in totality as a community. So CrossFit the games grows faster in spending. Affiliate growth is in decline year over year. Affiliate money funds the games. Money not reinvested in training or affiliates is subsidizing its own demise. You following?
Yes. But it's to use another analogy, it's like carbs. You can work out more and more a lot of the time. Like if you ingest more carbs, you'll have higher intensity workouts. You'll have, you can do more workouts, but there's a return on investment. You can't eat 1,000 grams of carbs every day. You're going to start giving yourself diabetes. And then all of a sudden you're funding your own death that way. Right? So it's the same situation here. This seems like a good idea. Pour money into this thing, and then all of a sudden the cliff comes and you didn't see it coming.
Yeah. Okay, so get with the programming. Interesting. Affiliate money does not fund the games
anymore, I would imagine. But it did. We know it did.
Well, then what does then? What does?
Well, Bo says the open revenue, and that's a sizable chunk, but that's also drying up as well.
Right. So what about the open revenue? Can that go towards the cost of funding the games? Absolutely. And I would say that is the main source of revenue. So Chase again is saying opens and partnerships. So interesting enough, Chase, let me help you out here. And by the way, the TV deals were paid for. Maybe not anymore, but off the data I had. So we have, if 51 cents of every dollar is spent on the CrossFit Games, but the CrossFit Games only brings in 25 cents of every dollar of revenue. It's a train running off the tracks. So listen to that. If I have 51 cents of every dollar that I have is spent on creating the games, and the open revenue, like partnerships in open quarterfinals, is only bringing in 25 cents of every dollar of revenue that's earned, that difference has to be made up with affiliate money.
Supplemented. Yeah.
Supplemented, subsidized, correct. Now,
I'm playing both sides right now. I understand where Chase is coming from, but I also want to see where your idea goes.
Yes. So now what Chase also speaking to is right now, he's talking about right now. We're referencing back to 2017. So that model could have changed, right?
Pre the explosion in the first Death Star. Got it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Augustus, no offense, Souza, but if Chase is employed by HQ, I have the tendency to believe him. Yes.
Chase doesn't know shit. He's a
what's it called when you
fake information?
Yes, map lady. Yeah. Just giving context and information, boys. Yes. I'm here from the party to feed you context and information. So anyways, now get back to let's go to Crash. Okay. So why would I say that? I was saying is essentially if there's not some sort of overhead net, meaning if we do not have a safety net of cash in CrossFit's money, the affiliates in the early days, potentially not now, right? So let's say that what we're saying here is that everything is true and that the open is completely all the money that it brings in $100. We have $100 to spend on the games. Plus we bring in partnerships. Those partnerships give us a little bit more money. Now we make a little bit of money off it. Okay. So let's say that is the case. Then that would mean that there is no overhead being subsidized by any other funding. And you could clearly see that on a separate P&L. Would be the only way you could do that.
Which is reverse of reverse of the situation that you would want. You would, well, two things. You would want the games to create a little bit of revenue to subsidize your operations at HQ for the affiliates in a perfect world. Or the marketing that you're getting from the games is doing that, down the road.
Right.
Which is how I got into CrossFit, was essentially because of the games 2012. But I think we're seeing that that's not the case anymore either. I don't have hardly any people come in because of the games anymore.
Right.
And there's multiple reasons for that.
Even if there was a small amount of revenue that contributed from affiliates to the games, you could argue that that's a reasonable amount to invest in marketing. And we're claiming that the CrossFit Games is a marketing tool for the affiliates, which to some degree it is. It should be. It's not nearly leveraged the way it could be and the way it should be. Mm-hmm. But we both agree that it can be, right? Yes. And to some degree, it still is right now. Right. To some degree. So the question then, in fact, is like, if we don't have that affiliate money to get this going in the first place. So let's say the model has changed now that it got in the hands of private equity. They were able to clean it up. It only exists with partnerships in open money, like Chase is saying. Okay. Then Justin Berg would still be around because he wouldn't have gone over budget. Okay. So if that were the case, maybe that's why he got fired, was because he went outside of that money. Allegedly, maybe he went outside of that budget. So then in which case, where that money magically appear to go outside of the budget would be affiliates. And again, going back to the numbers of 2017, it was a monster that was funding its own demise because the game was growing in expenditure much faster than it was able to bring in money and grow affiliates to subsidize it. Okay.
Everybody knew that. We could see the cliff coming to a degree. I mean, would you agree with that statement?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like it was, it needed to be restructured. And interestingly enough, in 2010, when they still had, sectionals?
Yeah.
Instead of sanctions or whatever, they had sectionals. Mm-hmm. And that was ran by the affiliates. I think there was like 33 regions or something like that. So if that were the case and they ran all of it, they got their own sponsorship. So it was like a NorCal Classic. It was like a Crash Crucible. That was actually really good for the CrossFit Games because couple of reasons. Not only did those affiliates responsible for all their own stuff, so CrossFit didn't have to get involved in paying for that at all, right? But it created a big funnel of people coming to these affiliates or to wherever they were hosting them to watch these athletes go. And then it kept it at a local level with partnerships, like we're seeing now with the NorCal Classic, and we're seeing with Crash Crucible. So,
well, can I piggyback off this real quick?
Yeah.
Because if you guys watched the Spincast the other night and the rumors or the fake news that Spin is spreading about Dubai, the license model that Greg tried in 2019, which is the sanctional model,
right?
That is essentially if we're right, we're walking backwards back into that because it's the more profitable model.
Right.
The issue now is that you've eaten through human capital and human faith to where people like NorCal and Crash don't want to be affiliated anymore. So you can't pull from the licenses anymore because nobody wants to buy them.
Right. Yeah. They've spent the equity in that situation of being a licensed sanctional, which used to have like put you up on a pedestal a little bit. And now people are like, we don't even really, we don't really care.
And I think this is where people can have a philosophical difference is, to me, I think what Crash is doing is right. And I think what NorCal is right. But if say there's this rumor about the different organizations that are all trying to start their different version of the sport, I think they're going to set themselves up to a similar situation in which they're building their own demise again. Because at the end of the day, I was talking to somebody about this. At the end of the day, the people want the big cheese. They want fittest on earth. They want that title. They want to play for the big game. And if that doesn't exist anymore, which will happen if there are multiple leagues set up, it's all over. So because at the base of this model, it all comes from the affiliates anyway, the fans, the people who play. Even now, when people don't train at gyms anymore, they're all training at their own little locations. it's still all being funded from the members from affiliates.
Yep. 100%.
Sorry.
No, that was great. That's a great point. Let's go to a couple of these comments real quick. Clock. Wait, is that real? Berg got fired because he went over budget? Allegedly. Again, I'm just the guy with the microphone. I don't really know shit. Chase sectionals, regionals to games.
2010.
Yeah. 2010. Did you compete in those?
He was in some.
I mean, I know he was.
He went to regionals. 20.
Yeah, I remember watching him at regionals, but I wonder if he was at sectionals as well too. Jake Felton fired over budget seems like a cop out. Could be. Good thing. Yes, I did. Dude, that's awesome.
Why don't you just brag away under the comments, Chase? I'm just kidding.
I thought the motto was just switching the whole system every year. Seems like it. That's also another good question for Chase. If have they switched it every single year? Has there been a change every single year made?
The past couple years hasn't. Well, never mind. It may be every single year.
I think there has been a change every single year.
It's muscle confusion. But it's the fan
muscle confusion. Maybe the best event voted gets the program the games that year. Yeah, I think there's a solution to that too. No, 2014 to 2018 was the same.
So those are the years that we all look back on and like as the regional
years.
Well,
because the regions did get combined those years, didn't they?
The reason
sort of like SoCal and NorCal got combined, and then it got combined to a West region.
There was regionals, and then there was super regionals, and then there was also adjustment of lines a few times, but that's getting into subjects that don't matter.
Yeah. Sorry, we're off in the weeds here a little bit. Okay, last one. Casey Allen, did you guys see the world in which the games dissolve, but Greg buys it back? Greg will never buy back the games. That would never happen. CrossFit, the company, I don't even think that either, to be honest. I think he's way too into all the broken science stuff. Wasn't the program made different at all of them? Yeah, I want to, and Seema, we'll hold on to that because I have a solution for that, and I'm curious to what Tyler thinks about that. Okay, so let's pause real quick on all the stuff from the games, and let's go into Crash Crucible, because we spoke a little bit about using that kind of as like a case study with like, and JR talked about, if you guys haven't seen the video that Rios made, do yourself a favor and go over there and check that out. The story of Crash. But JR publicly stated in that video that he was like, I never wanted to grow larger than Crash. He was like, then doing it at his physical affiliate. He was like, the most I could see is us cementing this whole back area. And you guys could see the drone shots if you go check that out. And he's like, and we could do something with this whole back area. Extend it out, which would be crazy. But so he spoke about that, and he's got, his members that are helping him out. So there's a lot of volunteers that are done in that. Of course, they're very well fed and everything the whole entire time and taken care of in terms of how much time they're actually on the floor and their jobs and their duties. But by and large, he's able to do it on a pretty shoestring budget. And mostly because he has location, he has people that are into it, and he's able to just do a lot of the work himself with his team there. So when we talk about sponsorships that get involved, like, is there a reason, and Travis could probably speak to this too with his booth, with the Vindicate booth he had, but like for partners that come to something like that, would that make sense? Like if you're a brand, like, would you go to those type of competitions? Would you sponsor them?
I mean, essentially that comes down to foot traffic, which I did have a conversation with JR about. And this ties into like, there are two sections of Crash that you really have to analyze. One is JR's portion, which is running the event itself, like you said, the building, all the bonuses that he has from doing it from his own affiliate and his own location. Like that's almost probably it's going to be the most understated portion of this, but that gives everyone so much freedom to do everything, right? But then there's also the production side, right? And so one of the things that I told Souza that I did not, and we want to kind of review ourselves on this, but I think one of the things that we didn't do a good job on was pre-promotion of Crash. But why didn't we do that? And it's because normally Crash has been done for just the competitors. It's not really been done for fans who are live, right? So the foot traffic side of this, and then it's turned into this production thing where people can watch from home, right? And so I sort of asked him, like, are you limited on the amount of people that can come and watch? And he was like, yeah, I mean, like that's going to be a limiter huge in the future. But I know that Travis has gone the past 2 years, so it's obviously worth it to him to some degree. And it's like when you have the brand buy-in that we have, especially with Travis at Vindicate, like if those people are truly tied into the story of what's happening there, I don't think you have a problem with sales because people want to buy your stuff. They're supporting everything that's happening at that event. And that's the way it was when I went to regionals 2014 through 2017. Like I would buy way more stuff through those years, even though I was way more broke back then. Because I just loved that everybody was there. And I liked all the shit. Like I loved all the t-shirts. I loved all the equipment. I wanted to buy that stuff. So like, that's a huge part of this. You buy stuff because of the story more than you buy anything.
Right.
So anyway.
Well, so outside of the live stream production, I think that there is an opportunity for vendors, but I think you have to think outside the box a little bit. And I'm not sure this would be right for something in Spartanburg, but I know here in Livermore, if we did that, we joked about doing a Crash West, Crash East, and hosting the two, and then a finale somewhere. But if we end up doing that across Livermore, my vendors that are going to be physically there, I'm just going to locally source. So I'm not worried about reaching out to anybody that's outside of the Livermore area because it's all foot traffic, right? So I'm going to grab all local type of vendors that'll be there. I'll grab my guy from the local coffee shop. I'll grab, whatever, somebody from the Whole Foods store over here, the health food store. I'll grab somebody from, wherever the case, and you could have them be local. Now, I think where the real money is made is on that live stream production, going to that portion, because then you could go outside of that. It's much more, people, you could justify it if you have a bigger company, like if you're a shoe company or a clothing company in the CrossFit space or whatever the case may be, then you'll be able to really expand. Okay, yeah, there's only 100 people that could fit at Crash, right? And by the way, if it ever gets to the point where that many people want to come, that's another great thing for JR, because now he just starts upping ticket prices to start weeding it out if you want to come and see it or not, right? So it's again, having that is a good problem for the affiliates, because you could always keep the constraint over the supply, even as demand grows. And then we opened it up. If you go look at the numbers for what we did with the live stream, right? Like instead of the 100 people that are there watching the event, now it's 10,000 people or more across the whole entire weekend of the competition. So now you could go back to bigger brands that are specific in the CrossFit space and say, hey, look, we got this competition. There's going to be X amount of people that are watching it. And if you do, like you had mentioned, the promotion leading up to it a little bit better, you could get those partners more involved early on, which just gives them more runway, more exposure, and different things like that.
That was one of the things. Like I looked at our numbers. So 33% of the subscribers I don't know if they were actual subscribers that watched, but 33% of your subscriber number watched Crash Crucible, which I think is really good. But also you should consider how faithful those watchers probably were. And that's the part here when I think about regional semifinals, all that stuff. They're only watching because they know it's the part of the season. They're watching it like a game. Whereas I think what we really pulled off that we've been building for the past, how long's Sevon been doing his show? 4 years, 3 years?
Yeah, 4 years.
Like that. You've been building a community of people who want to go watch. And I think that was the difference in regionals in 2014 through 18 was the community. You had a community of people who were dedicated to what was happening at that event, right? And everybody who was at Crash or watching Crash was dedicated. And that's the thing that I think semifinals is missing, is there's no dedication. You're only watching because you know people most of the time. There are very few of us who are watching because we're true fans of the sport.
Yes, and that goes to the more consistent season, more media behind it will help build that growth. Because if we have like stuff like the road to the games or road to regionals or all these things that used to be produced, which you could do that much cheaper and outside of house, right? You could also just host a lot of those from other media people that are making them on their own. But those are what build the relationship with the people. Then, like you said, you go and you go watch the people.
That's one of my favorite things that we haven't really talked about that much, which is all the characters involved with the production of the event are are storylines that people tune into. So John Young's one of my favorite ones. And I wanted to do a reel on this. Problem is, I think too big, but I was telling Rios about this. I was like, I wanted to do Crash to me is essentially homecoming for us each year. It's essentially like after Crash, we all go out and we try new stuff and we refine our craft and we do all these new things. We learn new skills throughout the year. And then we all kind of come together at Crash where it's our party and we kind of get to just strut our stuff and say like, this is our thing. And so I wanted to take a snapshot of like little screen recordings of like Sevon, you, JR, Bill throughout the past 3 years and like look at how kind of rickety it was in the beginning.
Right.
And then like through that intermix picked snaps of John. And then at the end, I would say something like, but this is my favorite story because John became a commentator.
Right.
And people are behind that storyline. So not only are we getting people more invested in the athletes and telling the storyline of like Lydia Fish and how amazing that moment was and who she is and letting her like spirit come out, but also you're invested in the fact that John has sort of become this person and you never would have cared about that story. And no offense to Chase, but it's like Chase is the commentator. He's the voice behind the games, right? But like we don't have that storyline with him. There are a few of us who know that storyline with Chase, but like outside of that, not a whole lot of us know. But with John, like that story's been going for the past 3 years.
Well, everybody loves the origin story. And so when you get to be a part of it and like see it evolve, I mean, there's a lot of people in this chat right now that remember the very first year at Wodapalooza when I was just wandering around with that cell phone. You know, Wodapalooza stream went down and we were the only ones with cameras out there and we jumped up to like 21,000 viewers or 22,000 viewers. And
your cell phone overheating all day long.
Yep. Yeah. All these different like issues or Zellos games where we tried to string up a bunch of them and it looked like cartoon blocks moving across the screen and try to just play it cool all weekend. Right.
But
Jenny, we met there. Oh, hi.
Oh, there you go.
All right.
Well. But it's like, you never get any of that with this other stuff. And it's just like, that's the real value. If you're a partner who's promoting remotely, so GoWad in this aspect, you're getting more return on your investment because people are actually engaged to the commercials that are playing. They're engaged with the floor graphics that are glued on the floor.
Yes.
Without that, you're just a billboard.
And I want to say this right here because Patrick Clark put this: CrossFit competitions with broadcasts have failed in converting ad time to ad sales. And that's because that shit is all so passive, dude. Like if you look at what we did with Born Primitive during the Open through the quarterfinals, that was an engaged partnership. And here's what I mean by that. Let's define that real quick. We were having conversations with Bear Handler, the CEO, who was calling in. We're talking about what sizes, when they're going to get stuff in. He was building a relationship with the audience. The audience was building a relationship with him. There was multiple times when it would be like, hey, let's get this person a pair of shoes, or let's see if we could raise some money. And if we raise X amount of dollars to give to the ladies for doing this, we're going to send them a pair of shoes. And we're calling them real time and having those conversations. So to the point of what you said with like, we're watching John like build up as this commentator, the audience was with us as we were developing that relationship and that partnership with Born Primitive, and they liked it and they liked the product that they were putting out and it was a good fit. And we sold a shitload of shoes on just that small of a thing. So if you were to imagine we could do that on a larger scale with the resources and fly him in on a helicopter and he rappels down from a rope during the Open announcement or just some out of the world shit, right? Like people would be like, whoa, that's crazy. Let's buy these shoes. But if you just flash the same, thing on the screen and have some QR code and it's not mentioned and half the athletes aren't even wearing the shoe that they're supposed to be sponsored by and there's no buy-in there, like nobody gives a shit. You're just this passive screen. You might as well be on a NASCAR with a sticker on the hood.
The conversion rate there has to be like 1 to 3, not even 3%, because 3% conversion is actually pretty decent. Like I bet it's less than 1%, which is like, people, that's the thing that I deal with Heat 1 all the time. People want to see raw numbers. And I'm like, but it's the quality of the number that matters. And that people, you're not able to quantify that. Right.
Yep.
And so since we're hinting around about this topic or we're sort of, tapping around it. One of the things that I wanted to bring up was, HWPO's involvement with Crash, and more broadly, an investment in something like Crash, and how to get any return as a partner. And so this is not a reflection about how I feel about HWPO as a person or as a group. But I think that it was a waste of money. It was a total waste of money, because the big thing for me was Nick Johnston. He has a T in there. Johnston. He did more for Proven by being there and in the community and investing his person and all of his athletes at that event than HWPO did by putting up graphics on stuff and basically showing no real interest in the event at all besides funding it. People don't care about the money. We do, but at the same time, like, there's not going to be any return. Like, where's the path to conversion for HWPO on this?
It is exactly what we just talked about, the passive versus interactive, right? So if HWPO had representation there, if they were there, you know, shaking hands, kissing babies, involved with JR. I mean, if you were sponsoring and wanted to maximize that, that would have been required. Show up, you know, do some cool stuff there, be present with JR. And the thing is too, is they missed out because we would have baked them into the stream, even though, by the way, that was not part of the deal at all. We had no deal with them whatsoever. But just because of support with the event, if one of those guys from HWPO showed up and it was like, oh, they're here, someone would have invited them on the stream, that would have been more time for them to go through. He would have asked them about the product, and it would have been that developing of a relationship happening rather than just like commercial playing and an ad read being done, which is the lowest form of interactive with your partner. But if you flip that and Proven had sponsored it and you had Nick Johnston there, Mr. Johnston, if he was there doing what he just normally does, which was funny because in that, I can't remember if you were on the show when Sevon was like, hey, everybody put a hand up if you're a fan
like
of
Nick.
Was that Kill Taylor last week? And everybody put their hand up. Yeah, that was 100%. Oh, thank you. I opted for the C4 live online, but gracious, probably my coffee that
Patrick brings up a point here. Didn't HWPO contribute the prize purse? If not, it's not a wasted investment if they feel like that and they're fine with it. Yes, but that's such a waste because there's basically apples on the tree that you didn't pick because you're like, well, 4 is fine. But it's like, dude, you could have had 10 for almost no more effort.
But hold on, bring clarity to it. It wasn't wasted because they sponsored it. It was a wasted opportunity because they didn't maximize what they had essentially bought into.
Right.
Okay.
Why wouldn't you?
Because then you have a runway to silence a few people for the whole entire time leading up into Crash just for that amount of money when it's more about maybe silencing than it is sponsoring the event. I don't know. Yeah. Allegedly.
That paid off.
Allegedly. So, yeah, but going back to what you're saying, like in these type of events, like the Crash Crucible should be 100% sponsored by these camps. Like what? Like you should be there scouting. And when you have something like JR's Crash Crucible, which if you look at the level of athlete that shows up there in what that is somewhat a predictor of, right? We saw a lot of people podium at Crash or win Crash and then go on to have a rookie season and make the games that year, right? There's a handful of people that did that. So if you have something like that, that's telling of the competition. Hey, the programming and the level of competition here is at a high enough level to where it could be determined as a predictor of you making it to the games or not. What type of athletes do those camps want and who is their customer? It's the semifinal level trying to make it into the games or that quarterfinal level that's just trying to break into the semifinals. That is their bread and butter for their athletes that are going to spend the time and the money and invest into those camps. So if I'm one of those camps, and there's an opportunity like Crash Crucible, I'm definitely sponsoring it. So in that sense, it's not a waste, but I'm maximizing it like Nick did when he was there. And I'm building relationships with all the up and coming athletes. I probably have been giving out some cool stuff like, hey, I saw you got 6 at Crash. Who are you working with right now? Cool. Nobody. Like, here's a free month with us. Here's whatever. Here's a free. And I'm boom, boom, boom. I'm just giving stuff out to people and like almost scouting talent there. And that's how, and if you sponsor the whole event, you could just maximize that whole entire thing. Right. So yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a waste for one of those camps to sponsor it. I think it's actually a fantastic opportunity to sponsor it, especially mid-level companies. If you're like a new jerky company, or if you're like got some clothing thing and you're right at like kind of that Travis level, like where you're not quite as big as some of these other ones, but you're big and you want to invest in growth, those are a perfect opportunity too, because now I'm schmoozing with all those athletes. Hey, you got a t-shirt sponsor? Cool.
Right.
Hey, how about I give you a handful of my stuff? You like it? Awesome. Here you go. Now I'm building relationships with all those potential up and comings too. I mean, look what Frazier did with Redline. Huh?
Right.
You guys remember Redline?
Oh, no, weird. I mean, the perfect poster child for this is Gabe. And he called in yesterday and they sort of romance each other about it. But it really is an amazing story of, Gabe was at Crash the past 2 years. He wasn't able to make it this year. They were open and proven HQ. So I think we'll let that pass. But I mean, dude, like his whole company's built off it started, and now he's majorly surpassed it, but it started from this community.
Absolutely.
And like in this community, and that's the aggravating thing, I think, to all of us, and sort of leads me into my next question. But the aggravating thing for all of us is like, we're limited to our own growth as far as the community, and like leveraging us into the greater CrossFit community. It's so easy. And then it pays dividends for community and brands in general.
Yep.
So like my next point is this replicatable by CrossFit?
Yeah. It's going to have to digress before it expands, because it is, but not in their current, dude, they've burnt every bridge of partnership and relationship that they've had. Like,
pull up Jake's comment real quick.
What's he got going on here? Jake Felton, I have the red and blue Redline gear digital camo shorts.
That means you're 85 years old.
Hey, Jake, I had those too, dude. Oh yeah. Sevon, we need a Kill Taylor sponsor this week. So if anybody wants to spend the easiest and best $500 you could spend on the most popular fitness show on the internet, hit me up. Shoot us a DM. Invite us. I mean, me or Sevon, please, not the podcast Instagram handle. So yeah, can CrossFit do that? I think that the short answer is they have to fix their internal issues. That I don't. A friend of ours made a comment. I couldn't remember if it was public or private, so I'm not going to out it here. But they made the suggestion of, how the fuck are you running CrossFit from your living room?
What are you talking about? I'm running this podcast from my house right now.
And I feel like the same way, in the sense of like what is happening? Like what, yeah. So I do think that they could, but you're gonna have to develop some real strong relationships and partners. And I don't think that I think that they got so many other issues right now that I don't think they have the capacity to be successful at that. And so that's my opinion on it. But it could be. But
it took us 3 years to create these storylines, who these people were, show the people that we can tell a story about somebody like Lydia Fish, and they're going to have that runway. They already have, they have the funds, they have the ability to, but can they really put their foot down and actually invest in, like, putting on characters that might say something like John says? I don't think that they have that ability. And when I think about the season that's coming up, it immediately, we all got this start really from Kill Taylor in quarterfinals. Like, I think that's when we really figured out what we were doing. Right.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, like, with the season possibly going to all remote, like, this sort of opens that up. And when you go back to your idea about these licenses and paying, getting other companies to pay those expenses, that immediately becomes like dollar signs pop up in my head immediately, because your investments doesn't have to be that great, especially if you do things like what did we call it? Kill Taylor at quarterfinals, or it's not Kill Taylor. Yeah. What did we call it?
Taylor versus the world.
Taylor versus the world. You do that at quarterfinals. Like, you can do that in several different places throughout quarterfinals. You can do that in several different places throughout semifinals if we're doing semifinals remotely, especially like for these camps like Proven, Mayhem. Like it's easily replicatable, but you have to have the people to tell the story.
Right.
So
yeah, the electronics are easy to replicate, but the whole thing is tough too.
Yeah.
So interestingly enough, I feel like, and let's go to solutions real quick on how this could work for the games, because I do want to give some tangible, like, hey, if we had the magic wand, how will we work our way through this? And I think the first thing is we just have to bring order to the season. I just think that you have to have something that you could make more reliable, because with the consistency and like it starts at this time and moves through this process and it ends here, not only do you create like a reliable runway for the athletes to actually build themselves up to it and train for it and, you know, yada, yada, yada. But on top of that, it allows like a nice media stream to tell a story. So you could have a lot of that leading up. So the first thing I would try to do is just staple down exactly what that season looks like. And then once you're like, okay, we want to have a runway from here to here, then you could start to fill in the gaps, whether that is all online to the games, whether that's the, you know, the licensing model where they sanction out a few of these things, like however you want to skin the cat there or make it fun, like do it. But it just needs to have some sort of reliability and consistency to it. That way you could back in the second most important part, which is going to be your media.
Yep.
And there's so many talented, creative people in our space that would basically do it for the cost of just their travel places, that the argument that you have to spend a lot of money to invest to get that going is completely false. Right. So I think you already know who there's certain people to contact in the space that are already doing it. And I think with a shoestring budget, you could have tons of really great media coming out of the space and out of the consistency of that season. So and then I think once those two are laid down and it's good, I think you'll see that lays the groundwork for the better partnerships, for the bigger fan base, for everything else that needs to come into play once those are there.
Right.
What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, the question is, are they going to do it or not? And it's like when we're doing the muscle confusion thing and we're changing the season every year, you start to just question, like, personally, I'm starting to lose faith that they'll ever pull it off. I mean, not to be a Debbie Downer. And that's what was so great at Crash, because it gave me faith again. But can HQ do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Patrick Clark, but then you're underselling those content creators. That's devaluing their work. Content creators need to be paid at some point. Dude, check yourself. That sounds like the most socialist comment I've ever heard in my life come out of you, Patrick. What's going on, dude?
You're not. No, you have to. Sorry, Souza. I'm gonna take
go ahead.
over.
Yeah.
John Young wasn't paid for forever, right? And then you have to prove your worth to a degree. There's a million content creators, and that's something we struggle with at Heat One, is like a lot of the good ones are already paid and you can't get them. But if you want to make it in this space, that's where we are. But as you get more people watching your stuff and you create a name for yourself, like look at the Buttery Bros. They did the groundwork for years. Yeah, they were paid by HQ, but like they weren't killing it in the beginning, and now they are. And it's like if you want money the first day, you're not going to have it. You will eventually build, especially with the way that the CrossFit sphere is right now. Like you'll eventually build up to where you have enough volume to actually make money. But there is a large portion of your own investment that has to go into CrossFit right now. I'm sorry, but that's the boat we're in.
Yeah. And a lot of them would still get paid. But here's the deal. Like it would take a little bit of time to start to build that groundwork for them and to build up the audience base that's big enough. It's one thing to say like, hey, all the content creators need to be paid more. And then I'm just going to say, great, we need 1 million more eyeballs. Because if we bring 1 million more eyeballs to all the views that these content creators are creating, and people care more about the athletes, and we build the ecosystem back up, the money will follow. But if we try to just say, hey, they're not going to work unless they're paid top dollar because they don't want to be undervalued, well, then great, you're never going to work. Sorry. Have fun doing a wedding.
Yep. Have fun doing a wedding.
Just keeping it real, And so if you're able to grow the ecosystem there, everything else will tend to follow. Okay, so now let's bring it into the. I understand that it takes time. Believe me, I worked for morning chocolate. Well, dude, if you're on the Titanic, you already know it's going to the bottom of the ocean.
I don't understand why we're making money. Well,
get out. I mean, I've been doing it here for 3 years, and I would say we're doing all right. So, okay, and
I like shoveling coal in the bottom. That's okay. We're gonna go down. I'm all right.
No, I was gonna start talking about how we had to swim upstream. We were shadow banned. We had people attack us, and how I still was able to turn this into just a profit monster. But I would hate for Hiller to be listening and accuse me of masturbating to myself again. So I'm not gonna do that.
Don't let him shame you. Don't let him sex shame you.
That's right. You can't. But you can't tell me when I've done it, when I've walked the path. Okay, with obviously fantastic teamwork and incredible people. And Savon's uncanny discipline, but yeah, we know how to do it. You know what I mean? We know how to do it. So okay, so let's back into the whole thing. You just said the most important part, which is going to close our whole entire loop and bring it back to the 2017 alleged numbers that I just made up for the sake of our argument here. So
all alleged.
So if that is the deal, meaning if affiliates are to some degree in the past, Chase, have funded the CrossFit Games, and now they were able to bring it into a section here that the CrossFit Games by and large is self-funded. Okay. And the affiliates now are good. Is it still possible for CrossFit to survive, or is the juice, like you said at the very beginning of this, are they looking at it and saying it's not even worth the squeeze anymore? Final thoughts.
My final thoughts on this. We talked about this, and this is so. Have you ever seen Jiro Dreams of Sushi?
No.
It's a great documentary about this guy who makes sushi. He's been a sushi chef for I don't know, 5 decades or whatever. But he ran a restaurant. I think it was in New York, and they charged like $3,000 just to sit down. Right. And I know this because we had to review it in a marketing class that I did one time. And the professor raised the question, how would you scale this? And what I told the class when I came back, we had to present, and I was like, I don't. Because why do you have to scale this thing? Why do you have to eke out 200, 300, 400% out of this idea when it is perfect the way in which it exists? A similar idea exists for me in CrossFit in that everybody wants a 20% return, right? Every investment, you want the highest return on investment, and it's private equity, so that's what they're thinking, right? CrossFit to me is not about the 20% return. If you're doing awesome, it's going to be 5%. But you're changing the world, and you're creating livelihoods for hundreds, thousands of people, and changing the lives of millions. Is that worth the 15% that you're not grabbing? To me, it would be. And I guess like you could throw in my face that it's like, you know, I was using the example earlier that I was kind of shitting on Patrick Clark for HWPO paying for the prize money and that being the value that they got. I guess you could throw that back in my face here, but I think the business model of CrossFit is not a 20% business model. It's 5%. So your question was, what does HQ, can they flip it? Can they make their money back? Can they make it a profitable business model? Yes, but it's never going to be 20%. And if it is, the issue that you get into, which I think is the world that we live in right now, is when you start creeping into that 15, 20%, you start eating the community.
Start rent seeking.
You're rent seeking.
Yep. Then you do stuff like open up a bunch of other things that are just successful other businesses, but now you do it under the mothership, right? So you could obtain all that revenue. Coffee pods and wads, there's a return. No, Peter, you back to work, sir. There is.
You guys are getting paid?
There's zero return for you. It's the same thing that happens in the gym space. CFL opens another location, but there's only one Souza. Certain businesses are super tough to scale. Yeah, there's a lot of truth in what Christian just said there.
There is only one Souza. Well, there's two.
That is true. Yeah. Okay, so I agree. I think that in order for us, the CrossFit community, to survive and to continue to grow, especially if we want to include the sports side into that, it is through digression. I think we go smaller, we go niche, we just speak completely to our own base. We build it within a local level, meaning utilizing spots like Crash Crucible and other things like that to get involved essentially in the sports side, which really helps fill back into our affiliates. And here's the thing. I think that the opportunity is crazy good right now for CrossFit, because if you look at what's happening with Robert Kennedy Jr. and potentially with this new like Make America Healthy Again stuff, and there's a lot of people out in the ecosystem basically talking about CrossFit but just dancing around it. Like if you were to really get your act together in the media space and capitalize on all of that and be able to have this unified message, and say, hey, you're listening to all this great stuff, we're the practicality of it, come visit one of our affiliates, it can make a huge change. But the problem is I think it's an internal problem. I think they have a cultural problem. I think they have a leadership problem. And fundamentally, I don't think they could answer two questions right now, which is like, what do we sell and who do we sell to? And at times with the business, it's easy to imagine, oh, we have all this stuff and all this opportunity. But when you break it back down to just the fundamental question of what do we sell and who is our customer, and everybody
you
on
sell
staff
everything and you sell it to no one.
Yeah, exactly. Our customer is everybody, and now it's nobody, which often happens. And if you go back and listen to the talk, which we started with Greg, he calls it jumping the chasm from early adopters to mainstream, something that all tech companies have to go through. And the question is can CrossFit make that jump? And are the right people that are at the helm right now have the ability to lead us across that? Yet to be determined. So that's pretty much it. I hope you guys got something out of that. Try to bring it back around to a nice full circle. The longest weave, Chase, big weave. Do a big weave here. And
he was like, oh, am I in the weave? You're a part of the weave. Welcome to the weave.
You are in it. Yeah. So anything else you want to add or cap that off with? I felt that we kind of covered all our bases and then talked a little bit about how you could maximize partnerships, how local levels could grow via live streams, different changes that CrossFit can essentially make to bring some life back into the season, and ways to make it profitable.
Yeah. For me, it's, if you're a common fan, that it's that like this is still a livable thing. And like we could have our best days ahead of us, and Crash proved that to me. And I just wanted to cover about like, hey, there's something here. Like other people can do this. Preferably us. If you want to do this, please reach out to us. But it's like, there's a lot here. And dude, it just felt so great to see all these storylines come together at the same time and truly be in the weave all at the same time. It was amazing. And so, yeah, in a time when it seems sort of desperate and like there might be no hope, I don't think that we're there yet. So
I don't think so either. There's always hope. Future looks bright. All right. That is it. Thank you guys. Thank you, Todd, for jumping on. I appreciate it. Always enjoy our conversations. You guys basically got to get a live look at one of our phone calls, essentially.
Yeah. A lot less cursing and
yeah, a little bit more
less tangents.
A little bit more tame. Tomorrow we'll have Greg Glassman on 7 a.m. with Sevon. That'll be another great show. I think Sevon talked about it on this morning show, but we got somebody coming on Friday morning that you guys are not going to want to miss. He was involved in the Afghanistan withdrawal. I know Sevon brought up some of the stuff on his Instagram. That's going to be a crazy podcast. Not to mention, we'll most likely do some sort of CrossFit update show or a Rogue preview show coming up soon. Uplift. Souza, did you get your Uplift shirt? I did not, but there's a couple of things that were missed. I got the little stupid pink slip from the people when I wasn't there from USPS. So hopefully they will come back around today because we will be there through that time. And thank you for that. So I'll rock it.
Augustus, I just moved. Your hat and all your stuff for your Heat 1 winnings are on its way.
Yeah. Look at that. That's the new studio, huh? You got the corner back there.
Yeah. I set up all this stuff this morning for the show. I had to make it look a little nice. It's sort of barren in here. If I spun around the cam, it would be you'd be like, damn, dude, you need to
empty.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, guys. So we will see you. Oh, I might for those of you guys that are watching the affiliate show, the affiliate watch parties, I'll be doing round 4. No, not tonight because I got to coach. Probably tomorrow at some time. And I think we're trying to position it to announce the winner on November 12th, Tuesday, when we have Chris Cooper from Two Bear Business in for the State of the Industry report. So tune into that, and we'll see you guys later. Thank you, Tyler. Adios, and bye-bye.